like slowly see things that are starting to come off the walls.
It's very exciting.
Kia ora, Claire. Welcome back to another week of school briefs, and what a week it has been. I
Really
thought,
has.
um, I thought getting into the budget, we might have a little bit of clear air to really start to kind of set the agenda. Um, However, that was not the case this week, as we have had a number of announcements, and
Humdingers.
um, looking forward to discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because yeah, there's a
Plenty to
few
discuss.
you kind of lives in the middle of a mess. What's most on top for you this week?
Well, obviously, there's the stuff that's starting to kick in with phase 5. So we've had our first tranche of phase 5 curricula out for consultation, a whole 4 weeks. And then, of course, there's the absolute clanger of announcement that we had yesterday with the proposal for replace NCEA, and so the NZCE and NZACE. So looking forward to doing a little bit of a deep dive into that topic.
Should
How
we
about you?
start? Yeah, should we start with the kind of slight win around the partial delay around
Mm.
the mandating of the curriculum areas? And I don't know, like I don't know, it's definitely a win because there was a large part of the sector that was calling for a slowdown, and some starts and some areas have been slowed down. But also at the same time, if you kind of have to drag the minister over the line, is it really that much of a win? Um, Particularly because she's shown no appetite for changing any of the kind of structural parts of the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I think, as we've mentioned over the last couple of weeks, it was actually in the minister's best interest to slow down the curriculum implementation because
Yeah.
saying too much at once just means that it's not going to land. And so, if anything, we've got a timetable that's going to allow us to better implement a pretty kind of poor curriculum as kind of.
Yeah, and I feel a little bit cynical. I feel like you, I feel like it's sort of been thrown some crumbs to appease the masses, but with actually little or if any substantial change or response actually happening. So it's sort of like, yep, it's good, but this idea that it's a sign that she's listening to people. I'm not so convinced that it's a sign that she's listening. As you say, it's pretty convenient to slow it down. It is a win, don't get me wrong. It's great that there's more time for it to happen. But as you say, if it's not the right curriculum, slowing down a bad train, I don't know. Is
Still,
that a win in the end?
yeah, and she was obviously at pains to make sure she didn't acknowledge the work of NZPF and NZEI Te Reo in that. It was just a plucky group of
You don't want to
principals.
be encouraging those union fellas and
No,
associations.
that's right. Alongside that, because obviously the slowing down of those learning areas were more the kind of 0 to 8. What was the announcement around senior secondary in that?
So we've started to have our draft subjects for public consultation kick in. So I think there's around 24, 28 subjects that got dropped sort of across English and mathematics and statistics, across science, social sciences, not history, that comes a little bit later, and then health education. So there's a whole lot of subjects because actually it's new for us in the senior school. Up until now, we've had learning area curriculum documents. We've never actually had single subject curriculum documents. So this is massive. This is a massive change for our sector. And what really concerns me is they welcome feedback on these draft subjects between the 15th of May and the 15th of June.
Oh, good.
We have a grand total of 4 weeks, half a week's already gone, 4 weeks to feedback on conceptually a whole new idea, but also a whole lot of documentation and subjects that we need to be across. And what we need to be really clear about is we are going to be expected to teach the whole subject. So people can't view this like they did learning areas in the past where they go, oh, this is a nice range of learning objectives. I can see how I can cherry pick this one and that one. when you look at these, you've got to be really mindful for what you're seeing as a discrete subject. So whether it's science at year 11 or biology at 12 and 13, you've got to be aware that you're expected to cover off everything in that subject curriculum. And you need to be mindful when it comes to being assessed, which is part of the other thing that we're going to discuss, that you're going to be assessed against that whole curriculum document as well. So really what we're talking about, Liam, is a prescribed syllabus. So you've got to look at all of these as a secondary teacher and say, is this going to meet the needs of our diverse learners and our local community? Are these going to be able to be reframed and, made relevant for our young people? And actually, is there enough time in the day to teach all of the stuff that's in each of these documents? And that's the initial feedback we're getting back, that it's just like, holy hecker. And, if we're going to cover all of these, how are we going to get through everything else in a week? So people need to really be looking. I know it's ridiculous that in the depths of term 2, we're supposed to find time to read and understand and feed back on these. They've actually offered up some really helpful webinars for you to find out more about the consultation. These are for teachers and HODs, and they're doing them. I mean, to be fair, they've got a few different times, all in the middle of the school day.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just like, what do they think people are doing in the middle of the school day? If they're not teaching, they're in the weeds planning and marking and keeping on top of things. So it's going to be a bit of a bun fight, Liam. And I have to say that I am the first one to admit we needed a more scaffolded curriculum. We needed really clear, stepped up threshold concepts and skills. But this is like an overcorrection and a real lurch to the right and a real lurch to 1985 in terms of very prescribed syllabus.
So they haven't actually designed a consultation system to value the voice of teachers. It's just more of a kind of tick box. But I
But
mean,
yeah,
this is also a government that's kind of shown complete disregard for any type of
yeah. So
consultation.
why pretend?
Yeah. So
You know,
you guys should feel grateful that you've been given 4 weeks. And I guess that's some of the frustration around the kind of two-track communications you hear,
mm,
where on one hand, teacher voice and teacher professionalism is going to be the heart of kind of how we drive change, but then actually not wanting to have consultation, because I'm assuming that the consultation they'll be after is going to be around content of those areas rather than any type of critique of the agenda.
oh, absolutely. There's, there'll be no opportunity to feed back on the fact that this whole approach is not fit for purpose. And the trouble is, people are going to be going in really myopically and potentially just looking at a subject that they teach and go, oh, that looks okay. Without zooming out and saying, actually, I'm not just critiquing this for the young people. Like, I might sit in a low EQI school, and a lot of these might not feel like much of a departure from what we've already offered all of the time. But what I encourage all of our educators to do is actually go in with the most inclusive lens you possibly can and say, look, I need to think about all of our learners up and down the country, across all different kinds of socioeconomic spaces, those with diverse learning needs, ESOL learners, our most at-risk learners. Is this going to be able to be reframed and made relevant to those young people? And I, I feel like, as I say, overcorrection. There'll be some good stuff in here, don't get me wrong. What I am heartened by is that we sort of have more confidence that this is actually being written by local experts, but it is being done very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, the other kind of upside is that at least we've got consistency across curriculum direction now, because everything that you've just mentioned around the marginalisation of our ESOL learners and Māori and
Yeah.
Pacifica
It's
is
already
exactly
happening in phase 4. Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so this
So
kind of
it's going to be consistently bad. That's really good, Liam.
this kind of mandated approach for structured literacy and maths. I think even Guy Claxon made the point when we spoke to him a week ago. It's going to benefit the kind of 80% of people that tend to do all right through public education anyway.
And
Um,
they're fine in the current system. That's the annoying thing.
yeah,
This is going to work for people who are already being served in the current system. The ones who are
I heard.
struggling in the current
Yeah,
system are going to struggle more.
I know. I heard two teachers talking about it the other day, and one of them made that exact same point: is that
Mm,
you weren't a bad teacher before taking on structured literacy in reading. Actually, your kids did all right. And this idea that you've got this new and improved way of teaching reading all of a sudden means you're a great reading teacher is just absolutely nonsense. Like our rereading scores, uh, they were kind of fine, but within a kind of world in which actually we always want to be doing better. But
yeah.
uh, the kind of
Oh,
approach, the throw the baby out with the bathwater approach that we've seen,
yeah.
didn't actually match the landscape that we were
Yeah.
teaching.
Imagine if we spent the resources in a way that we were wrapping around our most at-risk communities, rather than this whole-scale scrapping of systems and starting from scratch. I really worry about the money that's going to be wasted in all of this as well.
Yeah, and we are starting to see more and more solutions to learning support issues being let's just fund more structured literacy.
Mm.
I don't know if you saw the Q&A interview this morning, but that was exactly what we had around our ESOL learners is that
Yeah.
actually we can do away with ESOL funding provided that we're just giving them more structured literacy.
And I notice there's trials for digital platforms start dropping more and more as well. So if people are interested, you can sign up for this digital platform and that. I mean, it's the textbooks of yesteryear are now funding digital platforms. Don't get me wrong; they have their place, but again, it's this overcorrection and a waste of time, resources, and money. It's really frustrating.
And I think that there is something that we should be digging into around the privatisation of PLD because
Yeah,
it's at this kind of another level now where you've got people being set up as private corporations and their whole commitment to a particular ideology and curriculum is now their kind of way that they earn their money. It doesn't give you a lot of space to be able to go and change direction as more evidence comes out because you've kind of pitched yourself to going in this one particular direction. It's
yeah.
really problematic.
Yeah, and in your space, I mean, I'm not so sure about this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some of these people that are delivering the PLD and their resources were actually involved in writing as well, weren't they? Or part
Yeah,
of curriculum groups.
yeah, that's right.
So real sort of conflict of interest stuff as well going on.
And it's a real issue with the fact that the Ministry of Education has walked away from being the kind of primary creator and deliverer of curriculum. Because when you've got some type of organisation, like they don't even have the structures within the Ministry of Education to be able to do it, it would be amazing if they did build a curriculum centre that first and foremost was around the kind of design, creation, and implementation of curriculum. So we could have confidence that those people that were working in there were forced first and foremost there for the right reasons. But
Yeah.
when you start to kind of build your livelihood into it, it becomes really problematic. And I remember seeing it play out really badly when they rolled out the first digital technologies curriculum, because we got a call at school from this guy that was going, "Oh, we're a PLD provider. We can get you 200 hours of digital technology." And I asked him who his facilitators were, and he said, "Oh no, we don't have them yet. We're just kind of build demand first, and then we'll look and deliver it
Yeah.
first."
But have
And
I
it's
got a deal for you?
this absolute wild west of PLD
Yeah.
now, where you're not starting with kind of facilitators and a curriculum. You're just trying to hoover up PLD hours, and then you'll kind of
Yeah.
backfill it with people that know how to deliver a curriculum.
No, it's absolutely worrying. But anyway, talking about a waste of resources and a waste of money, can we get on to the proposal to replace NCEA? So on Saturday morning, our minister made a very confident, articulate announcement about the introduction of the NZCE and the NZACE. So the new Year 12 and Year 13 certificate that's going to save us from NCEA that has been so diabolical for the last 20 years and, is so hard to understand. And it cracked me up because I looked at the document and was like, oh my goodness, this is so damn convoluted in terms of how it's looking. The only thing that they can say is that it's familiar to old people because it sounds a lot like what we had in the 80s and 90s. I mean, there are some differences. This is not completely school C and bursary, but A to F grades, pass and fail, whole subjects. It's going to be really clear and really easy to understand. But it's hugely problematic. And again, a great big waste of money. We would have been so much better off strengthening NCEA. So this nonsense that she keeps leaning into about NCEA being hard to understand, it isn't. And this is no easier to understand. At best, it's familiar. We know that this is going to do harm to our most at-risk learners. Her own proactively released cabinet paper highlighted that it was most likely going to see a decline, at least in the shorter term, of our Māori, Pacifica, ESOL, our divergent learners, neurodivergent learners. So this is going to do very real harm, and it's going to result in a narrowing of the curriculum, because you are no longer going to be able to design courses and initiatives for your context by using a combination of standards. And we know that students are going to have 3 of the 5. They have to take 5 subjects. You have to get 3 of the 5 subjects to pass. If you want to get a distinction or an excellence, I believe you have to get B or higher in each of your subjects to get a distinction, or an A across all 5 subjects to get an excellence excellence. So it's all the same idea. It's just different numbers and letters. Instead of merit and excellence, it's distinction and excellence. And then we've got the very real problem. She had this whole narrative that this was about making sure that people didn't play the system. And students may have played the system in the past by picking and cherry picking, and teachers may have cherry picked standards. Now, I reckon we could see young people prioritizing and ditching, not in the physical sense, but in the sort of the cognitive sense, 2 of their subjects. If they know that they only need to pass 3 subjects to get a certificate, and you were really struggling with a whole subject approach, you might just decide to focus on 3 or 4 subjects, thereby narrowing your academic journey hugely. And we still don't know what university entrance looks like. And again, all of this is going to cost a whole lot of money. I reflect on the fact that people were, critiquing NCEA because it wasn't rigorous enough. Do you know what we needed to do? We needed to do an audit of every single standard, and we needed to ensure that they were at the curriculum level they said we were at. And then at the end of the day, if they achieved it or not, you could be confident that they were at that level of the curriculum. Like, I agree, at the moment, there's some standards and unit standards that feel like they're not at level 6 of the curriculum, or 7 of the curriculum, or 8 of the curriculum. That's a problem we could solve in many other ways. And the fact that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater is criminal. Criminal.
Yeah. And that goes back to the position we've had for a long time now around NCEA needing to be reworked as opposed to... But can I just check, because it's obviously not my area of the profession, but you could get 50% in an exam and then get the qualification.
That's my understanding, because you need to pass 3 subjects to get a exam. There's also the weird thing, Liam, that every single subject must have an exam, or at least that's what's stated at the moment. Really interested to understand what that looks like in our arts and technologies and performing arts. Like, what a bizarre thing to decide. Like, I understand having externally assessed standards, but an exam in this day and age?
It was interesting you used the example of the kind of gamification of the new curriculum, of the new qualifications, because that was exactly my approach to bursary. I did the minimum number.
Yeah, minimum of the minimum.
Of academically dense subjects to get the pass. And then I did I forget what it was, but it was like a second tier health and PE that was far more focused on kind of practical and stuff. And I had a whale of a time, but I knew full well I was taking that because I didn't want the cognitive load attached to some of the other curriculum. I can't believe I'm using that word, but
You were sitting around thinking about your cognitive load at the age of 17.
No, it's like, I mean, but I mean, these were all of the conversations going on across my peers as well,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
we were kind of similar. And so,
as long as there's teenagers, they're going to find ways to, work the system and, in one way or another. And to a degree, why shouldn't they if it's available to them? But I don't know. I
I think
just feel
those
like
don't.
there's some real loss that's going to go on as a result of this.
But I think the fact that that is an inevitability of any system means that it shouldn't be used as a criticism of
Yeah,
NCEA.
100%.
And we should
Yeah.
always be looking for ways to make things more rigorous. But again, I mean, on the interview this morning, that was the kind of initial criticism around why we needed to move away from NCA. But just seems to be typical of any system.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but the other part though that I'm fearful of is the level of anxiety and stress that is going to go on young people with this kind of winner takes all
Yeah.
approach to exams.
Yeah. And compulsory exams is going to be hugely, like, don't get me wrong. Exams, they make sense in some subjects, and I can see that they're a way for people to be assured that things are nationally and consistently assessed. I don't think it's a be all and end all. Like, even in our, I'm an English teacher by trade. I often used to reflect on the fact that kids were actually gaming their preparation for exams. They used to learn what the key words were. They used to, at the end of the day, learn to regurgitate in one way or another an exam or sort of pre-prepared answers. Young people have gained the system since the dawn of time, but you know, you often weren't actually assessing young people about how well they could decode or deconstruct a text. You were actually assessing them on how well they could recall and regurgitate under pressure.
And if anything, we are taking more tools away from them in exam, which is a real distinction between
Mm,
want people to be able to access and analyze information now.
yeah.
In any workplace, you give them as many tools as you can, and typically the time to be able to get the right answer. I mean, I'm not going to die on a hill, but um, I'm still to be convinced around the value of exams as a kind of way of measuring understanding of something, because it just feels so foreign as an
Oh,
intermediate around how my kids in class develop their understanding of areas.
and you know what's going to happen, Liam? You will have the trickle down effect. There will become this culture that we need to get kids exam ready. And the way you get kids exam ready is you start getting them to do practice exams, and before you know it, they'll be doing it at, year 9 and 10, 7 and 8, as preparation for the preparation of the preparation for these high stakes exams. I don't know. It just strikes me, it's really frustrating when something which is actually really uninspirational, which is really old fashioned, is being wheeled out as saving us all. And what was really interesting, we've talked about this a few times now, is that when our minister announces something, we see pretty much every other member of the party doing the same promos on their Facebook pages and their social media. And again, I can't recall ever seeing that in education in the past.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're all pumping. And you know what's interesting? Some of those members of parliament and party members may genuinely, because our minister has a very compelling way of speaking and she's very assured, they may superficially think it sounds like a good idea. And it's a real shame that people without a depth of understanding are actually peddling what is ultimately damaging reforms. And I think it's a real shame and a real concern. So it's a watch this space.
I think we should be cautious around how easily we compare things to what's going on over in Trump land. But it does feel like this kind of comparison where Trump seems to hark back to this kind of perfect time in America of the 1950s, where there were particular gender roles and there was kind of lots
Yeah, yeah.
of
And
around.
there was order.
Yeah, that's right.
People knew where they belonged.
And it feels kind of like lazy policy development to be able to pick this kind of time in the past.
Nostalgia politics.
And I just think we're even further removed around the vital skills of teamwork and problem solving
Yeah,
and critical
yeah.
thinking, and our policy direction is just running so fast away from that stuff. And the biggest slap on the face in the whole curriculum development is the fact that they've done nothing about the key competencies.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a forgotten concept. But and what's so upsetting, I remember not long ago I went on to, it's not through Education Counts, there's another platform that you can go back and you can see data right through from the 50s, of like national education data. 70s, 80s, 90s, half of our student population were leaving by 15.
Yep.
And actually, it was not uncommon to only have like 10, 15, 20 seventh formers who were left, who had survived the Hunger Games. And actually, a whole lot of them had gone off into menial employment or unemployment, or had picked up, at least at that time, there were apprenticeships and pathways for them to step into. The thing that worries me is that we know this is going to set up young people to fail, and we haven't got any of the other catchments in place. We don't have those apprenticeships and pathways like we did in the past. We certainly don't have the jobs out there for them.
Yep.
And now they've pulled up the ladder in terms of the fees free as well. Like this, like, does this government not like young people?
They definitely don't take seriously the issue with the number of people looking overseas, and there
Yeah,
doesn't seem to be anything on the horizon that's going to kind of keep them here in New Zealand in a kind of final school qualification that looks to work in the interest of those who are already most served.
yeah,
Isn't going to be the thing that turns it around.
yeah.
Hey, but I was going to say, speaking of good news, but I've read it and it isn't great news. Uh,
We're trying to do our very best. Like when we spoke to Bruce Jepson and Therese Ford. For those of you, you're about to get this to drop in your inbox any moment now. And they always brought the light at the end. We're going to try our very best to bring the light, Liam. Come on.
look, look, it is a group of people being proactive in education, and so we like that. People will be aware that last year, in the lead up to the budget, we launched Beyond Capacity, which brought together a range of different voices in education and the parent community to really tell the kind of sad and sobering story of what's going on in the learning support space. But then the budget came along and the minister announced the learning support budget, the largest ever increase of learning support funding. And finally, it has been fixed. Also, we've been led
But
to believe. What we did want to do is we've asked the lead author, Dr. Sarah Iona, to do a kind of follow up 12 months to specifically go back out to the voices within the sector and understand what the impact has been, because you would like to think the confidence in which the minister spoke about that kind of investment in learning support, we would start to see some kind of green shoots of what's been happening. And so the report is going to be available publicly on the 26th of May. And
yeah.
for anybody in and around the Wellington area, it's going to be launched at Parliament. And so
Oh,
it would
so
be
gutted that I can't be there.
come along.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So that is the light at the end of our session today. It's the fact that people have the opportunity to come together and to learn from that. It might be a sobering read. I have no doubt about it. But amazing that we get to get people together. And I think that's the silver lining out of all of these things, really, isn't it? That we've got educators becoming increasingly galvanized and united about the things that we care about and willing to speak up more and more. And I guess if there's anything that we can do here is actually encourage people to keep on speaking. If you want to write about something, approach us. We're happy to look at people's submissions and share that through our AEC Substack. Liam and I love having conversations with people. We do that nearly on a nightly basis. You will have all hopefully seen the Guy Claxton interview that we did at the end of last week. It's an absolute romping listen. It is a long one, 60 minutes, but it's a slow burn. So if you opened it and then paused, I encourage you to go back because it really ramps up in the last 15 minutes. He really warmed up and was on fire at the end of that one. And we've got a chat with Bruce Jepson and Therese Ford coming out, and we're looking to record our final in our Waitangi Tribunal series with Rebecca Lascelles. So that'll be out later this week as well. So it is all on.
Very much so. I mean, I was going to finish with a silver lining that the launch of the learning support presentation was going to be a catered event. But no, I think the kind of summary around all of the work that people are putting into talking about what's going on in education, I think, is a much better place to finish.
Yeah. So I believe Ginny Anderson's helping to host that event. But also, can we do a bit of a shout out again to our friend Lawrence from the Green Party, who has been doing a great job responding to announcements. So if you're not following him on Instagram, he's always worth a follow so you can hear his explanation and his take on things. So really good to start hearing some diverse voices starting to bubble up and speak out alongside us.
So, Claire, let's wrap it up there. It's been lovely to talk to you, and we'll talk next week.
Absolutely.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.